Hi, my name's Michael Lawson and I'm with the Movebot team. So today I'm going to be taking you through a quick migration between Google Drive and Dropbox. And so with Movebot, the process goes a little bit something like this. So first we connect to Google and Dropbox, and then we map out the folders and the users and the shared drives that we want to migrate. Then we run a scan. And the scan is going to tell us exactly what's going to happen during the migration, and it's going to pull out any errors or any sort of issues that we might predict that the migration is going to run into. And once we're happy with the scan results and we've checked it, we're going to go straight into the transfer or the execute stage. And this is where the vast majority of the data will actually get transferred across into the destination. And from that point onwards, we will just be running deltas, so picking up changes that have been made in the source and pulling them across into the destination so that you can manage the cutover period however you like. And so let's jump straight into it and give you a bit of a tour of the product. And so this is Movebot, and this is what you will generally see when you first sign into Movebot. Now I've actually already created a base project and I've linked it to Google Drive and Dropbox. That part of the process can take a couple of minutes, so I wanted to streamline it a bit. But if we jump in and have a look at the settings, we can see that the first thing you would normally do is configure a name. And then you're going to configure the source connection, you're going to configure the destination connection, and you will need administration accounts on both of these platforms. And then we have some additional options. So if you're going to be configuring or migrating permissions, this is where you would do it. You will toggle this option, and then we'll give you a bunch of additional properties that you need to work through to configure the permission migration. From there, you're going to go into content options, and here we give you a few different flags or tuning mechanisms that you can use to sort of change or adjust how the migration is going to behave. Things like creating a namespace per transfer in Dropbox and excluding or explicitly including different files in the migration. If we jump across here, we've got a few other options around performance and some advanced checks that we're performing. For the most part though, you can ignore all of this and jump straight into the next stage of the process, which is around mapping the transfers between Google Drive and Dropbox. And so we do that, the easiest way to do it is actually just by doing it manually here, but you can also do it using a CSV import. And you can do it automatically across the organization too. So what we're going to do now is just cherry pick from our Google environment a particular user. So I've set up this dev at couch.demo user specifically for this purpose. And we're going to map him directly into the dev at couch.demo account on the Dropbox side. So basically it's just point and click. And so that's added a mapping, and for good measure, we'll actually go and choose another one as well. And so we have here a couple of different team drives on the Google side, and we're going to map them into team drives on the Dropbox side. And I think I have a folder. We can actually just stick it in accounting for the sake of it. Okay, we hit save, and we'd go back to this screen here. And from this point onwards, so you've configured 2 transfers, and the next step is actually to kick a scan off on both of these. And we can do that just by clicking the checkbox. You can also do it here from this menu, and you see you've got a lot of options there, and we're going to hit scan and discovery. That's going to start that process, and I'm going to leave you for a second or two while that runs, and we're going to come back and take a look at the results and at the next stage. All right, and we're back. So the scan that we ran for the dev at couch.demo user going from Google into Dropbox is finished. It's a very, very small sample size here, but this is what you can see off the bat. And so the scan results will tell you how much data we've discovered, only 52 kilobytes, which is quite a small volume. But we've picked up 8 files, we've found 3 directories, There's actually a couple of ignored files, and we have some warnings as well. But generally at this stage, what you can do is actually, if everything is green and the numbers marry up, you're normally good to go. So you can kick off the migration from that point. But it always does pay to have a quick look as well. And so we have a couple of different viewpoints here that we can look at. One is the content insights. And so if we jump across into this is going to give us some information about what the data looks like. It's going to tell us interesting things like how old the data is, how big it is, what file types you've got. And it also gives you a bit of information on predicted issues as well. Along with this, you have the Explorer view. And the Explorer view is incredibly useful. It tells you a couple of things. Firstly, it will actually tell you what the data is going to look like in the destination. So if we toggle this, the show simulated view option, we can see that the data is going to go, or that folder is going to become migrated from dev at CouchShock demo. And we can see that it has 52 kilobytes of data in it and 2 folders and 8 files. And we can actually drill into this. So we can jump down and we get a nice hierarchical view of the file system. And that can be searched. We can filter for different things. We can look for files over a certain file size threshold. We can look for duplicates. We can look at folder depth. There's a whole raft of different things that we can explore here. Probably the most important thing that you're going to want to pay attention to is the error tracker. And so the error tracker gives you an idea as to where we've detected issues. And once the migration is actually run, this will be probably the place where you're spending the most time. You need to go through it and look for critical errors, high severity errors, and deal with any problems that arise. Here it always pays just to have a quick look and make sure that there are no critical errors. In our case, there aren't any. There are just a few issues detected with file name sanitization. But we can safely ignore those because the system is actually going to deal with them itself. So if we jump back to the status page here again, once again what we were looking for here is just that everything is green and that numbers roughly match up with our expectation. And then if you're happy with it, we can hit launch migration. And so that's going to go now into the pending stage. What's happening in the background for us here is we are launching some compute resources to actually run the migration. And we're going to see the migration transition into a calculating state again in just a second. And then we will actually be able to have a look at exactly what it's doing as it goes through that transfer process. And this shouldn't take very long, so we're going to just sit here for a second and watch that go through. And there we go. So it's gone into a scanning stage again, and the scan is actually exactly the same as with the pre-flight scan as well. And what it's doing is just sort of calculating the picture and the transfers that it needs to make, and performing any sanitization or any deduplication that it needs to perform as part of that migration. And here, when a migration is running, you have a tail log function, and we can see this gives you some insight into what the move workers are actually doing. You have a performance insights function as well, and here you can look at the average upload and download time per file, the CPU load, the rate limiting, and other useful metrics that will help you identify what's happening as that migration runs through. The initial stage here takes a couple of minutes just to perform some pre-flight checks, and then we're going to get straight into it. Okay, now we can see now it's actually started the scan process. So it's scanning for files inside these folders. And I think now it's actually jumped across to the transferring step. Because we've only got a small amount of data, it's actually very fast. But you can see we are transferring all the budget files, and we're attempting to transfer the icar.com.txt file. Now this is actually a test virus file, so we're going to see a failure. And you can see that in the logs here. So Google is actually blocking us from being able to download that file because they've detected that it's actually malicious, which is a good thing, right? We don't want to be transferring malicious content. And so we will see that as a failure when the migration actually finishes in just a second. Okay, it has actually exited out and finished. The page just hasn't refreshed. But here we go. And so this is what a finished migration or transfer looks like. And so once again, we have this sort of summary of the transfer results. We can see that we transferred 7 out of the 8 files under this particular user's account. There were 3 directories, there was 1 ignored file, and by clicking on any one of these columns or pills, you can actually see what the content looks like. Now, the important part here is actually the failed transfers. So we have 1 file which has failed to transfer and 1 error, which are actually the same thing in this case, but sometimes errors can occur in different parts of the process. So we're going to have a quick look at this error here. And so again, this screen we've seen before, but it gives you a summary of the criticality of these errors. And anything in the critical column or in the high severity column needs to be looked at before you can proceed. And we have, in this case, 3 errors and 1 in the high severity box. And that's the icar.com.txt file. So we can see it's a high severity and the error occurred as part of the transfer file process. If we click on this here, we can actually see the detailed error that has come from Google in this case. And there's a little abstraction here, so we see, okay, this file has been identified as malware or spam and can't be downloaded. And you get a bit of information about that, and you can then decide to exclude that file. So you could mark it as ignored, or you could just forget about it and move on to the next stage of the migration process. And so if we jump back here, the next and final stage of this process is going to be to launch the Delta. And the Delta is going to pick up any changes that have occurred since we initially ran the migration. And so you would do that by just clicking Launch Delta. And the system is once again going to run a scan of the source, and this time it's going to actually have a look at the destination as well and try and figure out what has changed. In our case, nothing's going to have changed. It will try and download the icar.com.txt file again, so the one that failed as part of the last transfer because it was a virus, being flagged as a virus by Google. It's going to give that another shot, and it's going to try and transfer that file 20 times again. And once this is complete, we will get another result set, which is going to tell us, okay, there were X number of unchanged files, and so many files failed, and so many files were transferred as part of the Delta. And I'm not going to let this run. I'm going to leave it at that. But if you jump back to the project view, where we're looking at all the tasks across the entire project, you get a bit of a summary here as well. And so generally with a bigger migration, you're going to have hundreds or even potentially thousands of small transfers, large transfers, that come under a single project. And this screen gives you a bit of a summary as to how those are progressing and which jobs or transfers you need to take a look at. You can see that here in the jobs that need attention, and you can see a bit of a summary over here as well. And I think that's probably it for our demo today. So if you have any more questions or would like to chat to someone from our engineering team, do reach out. And of course, you can actually just sign up for Movebot and get started today. Thanks for your time.